Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. My pranams to the Acharyals, and namaskaram to everyone here. The onward march to Rama Rajya. And if all of us could recap what Rohit had been telling us all the while. Rama Rajya is a situation of Swarajya too. Taking that cue, before I proceed to discuss something that's been assigned to me this morning, I would like to remind you of two scenes from Ramayana itself. How could one not think of Ramayana when Rama is being worshipped at? So let me just give you two scenes. I would not discuss these two scenes now. Just keep them in your mind, and whatever your mind does to these two scenes, let's see them at the end. One scene is from the well-known Ramacharita and the situation as such is the marriage of the four brothers, Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata and Shatrugna. And as the wedding or the weddings get solemnized, Tulsi makes this mention. He says, Anurupa para dulahini paraspara laki sukucha. The brides, the four brides, just turned round and looked at their respective grooms, and looking at the Paraspara match, looking at the Paraspara beauty, they smiled, they were extremely happy, and then the whole thing goes on. They were internalizing the happiness and so on. Just keep this in your mind, looking at the Paraspara beauty. The second scene is again from Ramayana, probably from one of the versions of Valmiki. There are several versions of the Ramayana itself in this land, and there are several versions of Valmiki Ramayana. Probably this is a version from one of the northern recensions of Valmiki. It's not found in the southern recension. The bridge had been built, Setu had been built, and the entire Vanara army was to march. At which time, the monkeys, in their hyper-excitement and in their curiosity to threaten Ravana, because they've been told by Anjaneya as to Ravana is a 10-headed person, monster and things like that. In their anxiety to threaten Ravana, they would want to transform themselves into monstrous beings, or at least human beings. And remember, the monkeys, the Vanaras in the Ramayana are Kamarupis. They could assume whatever form they want at their will. So the Vanaras would say, let's take at least the human form. Otherwise, that 10-headed monster would think that we are all mere monkeys. And some of them undergo a kind of partial transformation, at which time Rama says, stop. No transformation. All of you remain as monkeys and come as monkeys. Done. The battle and all that we know. The battle is over. Ravana is slain. They come back. They are at Nandigram. and they would have to go into the city of Ayodhya for Rama's coronation, when all those monkeys, which are all decorated now, especially the she monkeys, all those monkey women were decorated by Kausalya herself. She wanted to do that as a mark of gratitude. And all those monkeys now, the he and the she monkeys, would now start on their journey towards Ayodhya when Rama would say, all of you become human forms. And they all would become human beings, march towards Ayodhya. Why this? I told you, no discussion now. Just leave it at that. Keep it with you. Let's see at the end. And this is what we are supposed to be discussing this morning. Organizational Dharma of the human society, lessons from biology. It's a very tricky situation. I have been a teacher for about 35 years now. And they would not leave me. I still have to continue with the same role this morning too. And teaching my familiar biology. But then as a teacher, I've seen every time the teacher dons the role of a teacher, it's interesting to note the students change. The students are new. The students vary. And we have come to certain newer techniques of teaching these days. We are no longer the traditional teachers. In fact, the very term teacher is going away, becoming obsolete. There is no teacher any longer. It's only a facilitator. And today, we are all together in this journey. One other newer term which is emerging in teaching is what's called andragogy. We used to call pedagogy those days. Pedagogy is a system wherein one person stands here and talks to the students. Pedagogy is no longer an ogue. It is andragogy, where everybody sits around the table. The facilitator is in one point, and then the rest of the learners are also around the same table, and all of them occupy the same platform. Though today I'm standing at a slightly elevated level this morning, it's only for the sake of convenience, I presume, and all of us are around the same table and thinking together. With that presumption that all of us are thinking together and sailing together, let's proceed. Now, there are too many terms in this so-called topic. Organizational Dharma of human society. What is an organization? Before talking in terms of organizational Dharma, are we not justified in defining what organization is? And then why should the human society have any kind of organization? And why should organizational structure be given importance? The human society can just be made to be on its own. Why should the organizational hierarchy or the organizational structure be given importance in the human society? Some of the answers to these questions, the preliminary questions, would be, if I look into a dictionary for the meaning for the word organization, I find all these. Organization is something that is organized. One of the best definitions that I can find, because anything that is best is the least understood. What is organization? Organization is something that is organized. Organization is an entity comprising multiple people with a collective goal and working towards the goal. This would be something like a company, an association, a structured body. Organization is forming or establishing something. We all know this. We could all say, this morning there is a program in Tattvāloka, and the organizers are establishing the event. They are formulating the steps of the event. And what is organization? Yet another way of looking at it, activity of distributing work and resources in a balanced manner, well organized. Something is done, you say it is well organized, it is balanced properly, this side and that side look symmetrical. And above all, you have the simplest of the simple definitions for the term organization, orderliness. There is orderliness, and that is organization. Now, coming to the next question, is organization essential? Yes, it is essential. And why? Why should organization be essential? When I say organization here, I take the simplest of the simple definitions, orderliness. Why is orderliness essential for the achievement of the goal? And I would qualify this statement a little more. I would say for the achievement of the goal in the shortest possible time, and organization is essential for the goal itself to be fructified. When I add a new term there, goal, I would have to define goal also. Kindly bear with me. As people in science, we are given to all these definitions. We feel comfortable only when we put the definitions in place. And what is a goal? A goal, in terms of the human society, would be effective and useful existence. Why should the human society be organized? Human society would have to have a useful existence, and for that useful existence, organization is essential. And history reveals that organizational ability has only led to civilization's advancements, development, technology, cell phones, gadgets, whatnot. If only the human resources were not organized properly, the man of the Stone Age would not have developed and reached this level. He would still be inventing the wheel. He said we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We are talking about reinvention and no necessity to reinvent the wheel. But then think of the time if only organizational channelization was not done. Human beings were there, nomadic human beings. A few people walking here and there with those Stone Age weapons. No collective responsibility, no collective ability, no putting together ideas. What would have happened? All of them would have remained as men of Stone Age, and we would not have proceeded at all. And to see a few things more in terms of the term organization, who gave this word organization? Or in other words, how did this word organization come into existence? Today, when I say organization, many of you would think in terms of a corporate body, an association, or a body of collective lot. But then how did this term come? This term, in the way we understand the word today, organization as a collective body. There is an association in Eldams Road, and that association can be called an organization. In this sense, the term came into existence only in the year 1873. meaning a system or an establishment. But then the very word comes from its Middle French and Middle English ancestor, which is organizar, the process of organizing, and this meaning was given somewhere in the 14th century. And if you trace the word even backwards, still backwards, you find it derives itself from the Latin or the Greek root. The Latin root is organum and the Greek root is organon. Both mean the same, meaning an organ of the body. Eye is an organ, the ear is an organ, the brain is an organ. That is where it came from. It came from the Greek root, when the Greeks thought they have to call some internal part of the body by a name. The term they used was organon, and this organon became organ, organ systems, organizer, organization, organism. And looking at this list, you will understand the very root organ has more biological relevance than social. We call something an organism. What is an organism? An insect is an organism. A human being is an organism. We call this an organism because this entity has the organs grouped in itself. Within itself, the organs are grouped, and these organ groups are working towards a common goal. And that is why this entity is called an organism. An ant is an organism. A heart there, you find the picture of a heart. The heart is an organ. The butterfly is an organism. The ant is an organism. And then you find down below, you find something marked, some pictures, and you would be able to read there the circulatory system, the respiratory system. What does this mean? There are organ systems within the body. I'm taking the human example. Within the body, there are organ systems. I have a heart. The heart is pumping blood. All of us know that. And where is this blood traveling? The blood is traveling within a set of tubes called the blood vessels. So if I put the blood vessels, the blood within the blood vessels, and the heart together, it's something similar to the pump and the hose pipe system that you have. The pump, the hose pipe system, and the water that flows inside. All this put together is what is called the cardiovascular system or the blood system. So this is one organ system. Heart is an organ. But then if you have 2-3 organs put together and all these organs are functioning towards a common goal, you call that an organ system. These terms have more biological relevance than social or corporate. So we now try and integrate all these terms. The organization, organizational dharma. If I put together all this, I come to an understanding. A society means group living. There is no society if there is no group living. Individual living is not society. It is mere existence. So whenever we talk in terms of a human society, it only means a group living. And systematicity and organization in the universe was called rhythm by our forefathers. Whatever Rohit was talking about, the Vedas make a mention of this term, rhythm. Rhythm is the organization that's found in the universe, the organizational principles, the rules which guide in toto the natural laws. The natural laws of the universe would be the body called rhythm. And then the same Vedas give us this term dharma, organization in the society. The systematized body of values within the society, especially the human society, is what is called dharma. And this dharma will determine individual and group behavior. In other words, dharma will now go and influence group living. If organization leads to group living, organizational dharma refines group living. And that is the crux of the entire matter. Having said that, let's have a look at these terms in their application in biology. With regard to biology, organization will specifically mean assemblage of smaller parts into larger structures, smaller units into larger entities. There again, you have the example of a tree. You find the leaves. The leaves are all smaller units. There are several leaves. All leaves don't look the same. Though they are from the same tree, all leaves will not be same. Something will be smaller, something will be larger. And then there could be shades of green. These leaves, what happens to the leaves? The leaves have what are called leaf stalks. These are also called the petioles. And then the petioles join up to form what is called a twig. Several twigs join up to form what is called the branch. And then you find several branches join up to form the stem. And the whole tree is there. Now each of these smaller units is important. But then each of the smaller unit contributes to the common whole of the tree. So in biology, organization will have a specific connotation, assemblage of smaller parts into larger structures. And as we ascend the organization in biology, complexity increases. This is what I call as the assemblage technique. We all know there are elements in the universe. Let's forget biology for a time being. There are elements. There are several elements. Even if you take the atmosphere, you know there are atoms of oxygen, atoms of hydrogen, atoms of nitrogen, so on. These are all elements. And these elements have subatomic particles which unite to form an atom. Several atoms unite to form a molecule. And then when you come to the biological structure, you find these molecules have regrouped themselves to form what are called cellular organelles. Now that is a picture of a single cell. Within the single cell, you find there are lots of structures. You find something called the nucleus. You find something called the mitochondria. You find a lysosome, a ribosome, a Golgi apparatus. Now all these are smaller units within a single cell. So subatomic particles, atoms, molecules, and these molecules, if I take the mitochondria and break it, probably I'll find lots of chemical molecules. The molecules have regrouped themselves to form what are called cell organelles, and the cell organelles put together, all these organelles put together form one single cell. And then what happens? There are several cells joined together. Cell we all know is the fundamental unit of life, but then if you put several cells together, that forms what is called a tissue. And then there are different types of tissues. Remember, cells are not the same. All cells are not the same. So if 2-3 cells, let's say there are 10 varieties of cells. First variety and fifth variety might form one tissue. Fourth variety, 10th variety, 9th variety might form another tissue. So cells join together to form what is called a tissue, and then different types of tissues join together to form what is called an organ, and different organs join together to form what is called an organ system. And these organ systems are all within the body. And coming back to the human system, you will find within this human body, you find lots of organ systems. There is only one example of the organ system there. You find the liver, you find the stomach, you find the intestines, that is the digestive system. But giving the simplest list possible, I can enumerate at least 11 organ systems in the human body. The integumentary system, which relates to the skin and the external cover. The skeletal system, which relates to the bones inside. The muscular system, which we all know. The nervous system, starting from the brain to the various nerves. The cardiovascular system, centered around the heart and then taking blood all over. The respiratory system, my lungs and the way I breathe in, breathe out and all that. The digestive system, the urinary system, the endocrine system, the lymphatic system, and the reproductive system. This is the simplest of the lists possible. I've only taken a school list and given. As an anatomist, if I go into the systems, I could still classify them into complex structures. I could talk in terms of several other systems. And my friend anesthesiologist there would still give some more systems depending on the complexity and their application. So the base is that variable smaller units jointly form a large structure. This is the organizational dharma that I find in biology. The principle of organization in biology is that smaller units make one comprehensive whole. Now, what are the various lessons which I would learn from this organizational concept in biology? The concept of organization with relation to biology, I'm now trying to take that and learn lessons from this concept. My lesson 1 would be variable smaller units jointly form a harmonious larger structure. Now every word is important. The units are small. You find there the heart in the center, the various vessels, but then what we've tried to show you is at the cellular level and the way the cells have joined up, there are any number of combinations. Any number of combinations. I would not go into those details, but then you find there are small structures. But then all these small structures work in harmony. This harmony in the universe is rhythm, but then this harmony inside the human society is dharma. My first lesson from biology would be there are smaller units in the society, and these smaller units will have to collectively work towards a harmonious whole. Now that is the corollary. The smaller units and the larger units at their respective levels function towards common objectives. Let's remember one thing here. The cells do their work. But then the heart as a whole, a big organ, does its work. And the entire cardiovascular system is doing its work. It's not that only the small component works, the large component is relaxing. No. All the components are working at their respective levels. What is my lesson 2? Different cells have different shapes, dimensions, and functions. All cells don't look the same. The blood cell and the lung cell are not the same. The muscle cell and the bone cell are not the same. They have different dimensions, different shapes, different colors, different functions. Just to give you some examples of the human cells, you find the red blood cell there, a smooth muscle cell, muscles which are found which are not in our control. These are not muscles which are in our control. Muscles in our control look different. These are muscles which are not in our control, what are called the involuntary muscles, a spindle-shaped cell. But then you find the red blood cell, which appears to be circular. It's a biconcave cell. And then epithelial cells, white blood cells. Then in the center you find a long cell, which is our nerve cell, otherwise called the neuron. And just to give you a comparative idea, you find the nerve cell there. See how complex it appears to be. It has so many internal organelles, and then the red blood cell appears simple. It's not as simple as it is projected here. Nevertheless, in comparison, it appears to be very simple. And how many cells are there in the human body? This is only a kind of an estimate. I'm sorry, I'm very, very weak in mathematics. Even if I would have to write 10,000, I think many of us have that habit. At the stroke of it, you do not know how many zeros to add on. And here is a banker, he would tell, you write, and then from the reverse you start counting the number of zeros and then mark the commas and then try to read, okay, this is lakh, this is at least till a lakh, it's fine, it's comfortable level. Beyond a lakh, how many? So kindly make your own reading of this, whatever you want to read. That many atoms are there in a human cell, and that many cells. A gross estimate. This is not a complete estimate. This is not the end-all number, because many of these estimates will keep changing as we learn more and more. And this again, different cells in the human body. Just to give you an idea, the cells are not the same in their dimensions and shape. There is one small little cell there, there is another large cell there. And just to give you more details of this, which is the smallest cell in the human body. If you start browsing different sites, and then there are lots of questions, many of these questions are asked in several quiz competitions. Unfortunately, we can never have the best answer or the right answer for any of these questions. The smallest cell in the human body as of now is thought to be the granule cell of the cerebellum, which is around 4 micrometers in diameter. 4 micrometers. A meter divided by 1,000 is a micrometer. And the human RBC is about 6.2 to 8 micrometers in diameter. The largest cell, once again, if you go into sites like Quora, you will find different answers pouring out and pouring in. The largest cell, the usual way a biologist looks at it is the largest cell in the human body is the female egg, or what we call the ovum, which is about 1 millimeter in diameter, barely visible to the naked eye. That is the largest possible cell. But then I found a very interesting discussion. Somebody was asking this question and somebody had given this answer, and then there was a response. No, be very, very clear and have a unitary kind of disposition in mind. You cannot be gender discriminative, because the answer pertains to a female ovum. The response was, don't be gender discriminative. So if it is the man, what would be the largest possible cell? Probably the neuron. The neuron. And then one word about the neuron here. Some of the neuron is a nerve cell. Some of the neurons are in the brain, and some of the neurons are in another structure called the spinal cord. The spinal cord runs down from the brain. For you to understand how big can a neuron be, the neuron, when you saw the picture of the neuron, see that there is a globular structure, And from that globular structure, there is some branch which is going straight long. Now, I don't have space there, so I've restricted the picture. But then that violet stuff inside the yellow, if you continue that, that is the nerve fiber. So just imagine there are neurons in the spinal cord, and the nerve fiber starting from the spinal cord would continue to reach probably this tip of your finger or the tip of your toe. So how long could that be? But then the neuron as such, that portion of the cell, that globular portion is very small. That is just about 0.1 millimeter in diameter. But then the fiber can be pretty long. And there can be variations. Now, I'm telling you all this just to tell you different cells have different shapes, dimensions, and functions. Not all cells look the same. Not all cells work the same. Not all cells appear the same. But every cell has its role and place. That is the dictum.